And I have the honor of being joined by NFL legend Dick Vermeil, Super Bowl 34 champion with the St. Louis Rams, two-time NFL Coach of the Year, and was voted into the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame, and of course the head coach of that great 1980 Eagles team that beat the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game and went to the Super Bowl. Coach Vermeil, thank you so much for coming on BGN Memories. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about my Eagles.
Yeah, man, it's been such fun going through this season because I know a lot of current Eagles fans just don't know much about that 1980 team, but the first Eagles team to go to the Super Bowl and what you did transforming that team from where it was in the 60s and 70s to becoming a winner in the late 1970s was just astonishing. So when we talk about this 80 Eagles team, we kind of need to talk about the lead up to that season. So I guess my first question is, how dire were things when you first took the helm of the Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, you were at UCLA and things you had a potential national championship team there, and you left to take over an Eagles team that was one of the worst teams in the NFL. How big a challenge was that?
Well, obviously it was a challenge. They had been losing for a number of years. They had broken even one season at a 7-7 record there in that long span without a playoff team. But initially, I was not going to take the job, and George Allen and Chuck Knox both said, Coach, I know both of these guys personally, and I did, George Allen and Chuck Knox having worked for him, and they said, very seldom does someone ever call you up on a phone and offer you an NFL football job, and you better really seriously rethink your thinking. Yeah. And so I did. I was offered the job, or the opportunity to talk about it on a Monday, and I accepted it on a Thursday, I think it was. Met with Jim Murray and Leonard Toews a few times at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills, California. And, from there on, I was an Eagle.
Well, and you had quite a task to build a roster there, too, because something not many people know is that when you took over, the team didn't have a first-round pick until 1979. So I think your first 3 seasons, you had to rebuild a roster without a first-round pick. How challenging was it to build a roster without being able to grab a top talent in the first round like that for so many years?
Well, I did it the old-fashioned way. We just went to work. We had no choice. If you take those kind of responsibilities on, the circumstances. And you were right, John. We had no first, second, or third round pick my first year, no first, second, or third round pick my second year, and no first and second my third year.
Wow.
So there's 8 solid football opportunities right there with solid players drafted at that time. And I often say to myself, I wonder how good that team would have been if we'd had those guys. See, the other negative of all the people they traded for, only a few of them were actually made our football teams. They were gone. Thank heavens Berge was there. Thank heavens Stan Walter was there. But basically, the rest of the trades and draft choices, high picks that they used to get these players were gone. Yeah. The return was not very good on the trade. So originally, I started out training camp like I had learned to do it with George Allen. Like I had learned to do it with Chuck Knox and Tommy Prothro in pro football. And once I got here and got into the season, now we used to have an offensive day, a defensive day, a combination day, a light day, and play the game.
Yeah.
And after watching us play and all that, I said, this is not going to work. We're not going to get much better doing this. Yeah. So we did offensive day, defensive day, every day. Every day.
Yeah.
So we had to lengthen the practice.
Yeah.
Almost double the amount of time we were spending on the field, and it gave good football coaches the opportunity to work with the players that we had. And going back to a John Wooden statement that he made to me when I was the head coach at UCLA was, don't worry about the other team's talent. He said USC, just make sure you make those that you have the best they can be.
Yeah.
So, and the only way you can do that is work.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, John. We just went to work. I had a great coaching staff. I made some changes in the second year there. We brought Jaworski in, hit it with Wilbert Montgomery, Carl Harrison, Charlie Johnson, these kind of draft choices. And then free agents, Johnny Shirer had played for quarterback for him, made a safety out of him. He played quarterback at UCLA. And these kind of people all came in. We get a Vince Papale off the street.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, but the big thing is we went to work and we coached them how to play their position better.
Yeah. And that takes buy-in from players too, and coaching staff, because I think one of the things that you've often talked about is, you worked them really hard, but everybody says about you, you worked harder than the players did, or as hard as or harder than the players did, and they have to. Players had to see that and know that we're busting our tails day in and day out, but the coach is doing the same thing.
Well, I believe one of my number 2 concepts in my philosophy of coaching is be a good example.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good examples. Fill the locker room up with people that are good examples for everybody around them.
Yeah.
And I really believe in that. And first, John, I never put myself in a category of being smart enough to outsmart somebody. Already, you're not going to outsmart Tom Landry and Don Shula and the Bill Walshes of the world. But maybe because you're young and passionate, enthusiastic, that maybe you can outwork them.
Yeah.
And plus, coaching to me was never work. I never felt like I went to work a day in my life except the day after a loss. Okay.
Yeah.
But, we had a lot of guys quit. We had a number of guys walk off the practice field. But those that stayed, there were 12 guys off the original roster that went to a Super Bowl 5 years later. 12 players.
To make that journey, that must have been incredible for those guys. And I imagine that's why it was so emotional for you when you guys finally did break through, because you had some of those guys who were there for the really lean years, for the years when Eagles fans were just brutally negative towards the team, and understandably so. To be able to take everybody through that process and then eventually break through must have just been so emotional that it's hard to imagine anybody not getting emotional about it.
Well, I'm razzed all the time.
I know. Yeah.
Emotional. Even Boomer Esiason made a sarcastic remark on television the other day, interviewing Marshall Falk, who did Vermeil Cry for You or something like that. I really believe in being who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just do who you are. And I call that emotional integrity.
Mm-hmm.
If you have integrity emotionally, people really know you.
Yeah.
And it helps you develop a deeper level of trust with them, and it eliminates a lot of second guesses early.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was for it. I was, you could call it lucky. I often said to friends, if some of the things we did in our early draft without first, second, third round picks were done in New York, they'd make you a hero, make you a genius, my personnel people.
Yeah.
But here, you're lucky. You're lucky to get a Wilbert Montgomery. You're lucky to get Charlie Johnson. You're lucky to get Carl Harrison, like 16, 17 years in the league. We worked hard at it.
Mm-hmm.
Collectively, everybody.
Yeah.
Very unselfish group of people.
And you wonder if Football Karma recognized that, and the hard work that you guys put in started to turn things around with that Miracle at the Meadowlands in '78, because that seemed to be the launch pad. Obviously the hard work you all put in and everything like that was the root cause of success, but that Miracle at the Meadowlands, it was a nice karmic moment for a franchise where I think the fan base anyway started to think, maybe things are starting to turn around a little bit. And I got to imagine having a fan base starting to rally behind the team had to help the team and help the players and help you as coaches as well.
Well, this is a blue-collar, hard-working city.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're criticized for it and they're made fun of it, but it's a great quality. That's how our great nation was built. Yeah. People working together, and John, I used to invite George Allen to training camp because I'd worked for him as the first special teams coach in 1969. And I'll never forget this. He went off our practice field one day at Westchester. Mm-hmm. And we'd moved from Chester to Widener College. Yeah. And he said, Coach, he says, I've never seen an NFL team work like your guys work. You see, we're into the program now. They know how to work, know how long to stay on the practice. Anyway, and he says, this team has the talent to win about 4 games in the league, but it wouldn't surprise me you win 12. That's exactly what he said. And I never, ever forgot that. But he was reflecting his thoughts in regard to watching those kids now that, they were young men, how they worked. And fortunately for me, a number of them are still in town. They live around here. Yeah. I had dinner with 8 of them about 3 weeks ago. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So they're what I consider some of my closest friends, because we went through so much together.
Yeah. Well, I talked to Jerry Robinson last month for the podcast. Oh my gosh. Yeah. He's wonderful. And he had nothing, I mean, obviously nothing but wonderful things to say about you and his time where, because you had him at UCLA as well. And
Yeah,
so,
I had him as a freshman,
right.
wide receiver.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He didn't mention that part. But
Well,
yeah. But I mean, he talked so highly of you and that team. And I want to talk about the 80 team because it was a special team. I mean, you could see the progression, and we see this with football teams sometimes. You see teams take steps. Sometimes a team just bursts onto the scene like your 99 Rams did, where, you know, that you didn't have okay, we have a winning record, then we make the playoffs, and we win a round, and then we get to the Super Bowl. Sometimes you take steps. Sometimes it just happens out of nowhere. For you, I think you could see the progression building, but in 1980, when you were coming into the 1980 season, did you have a sense that you could take that you were going to take that next step and really be the cream of the conference?
I really did. I really did. See, the year before, fifth game of the season, Pittsburgh Steelers, world champion, came to Philadelphia, the fifth game of the season, undefeated, and we beat them. And from that time, that solidified the confidence and the belief in what we were doing, that it was right and that we could beat the best football teams in football. We just have to stay healthy and consistently play to our ability and keep working to get better. And we use the same philosophy at St. Louis, same training camp routines and all that. And nobody else was working like that anymore. And I know 9 guys ended up going to the Super Bowl off my first Ram team, 9 guys.
Wow.
But see, we had first and second and third round picks and free agency. And so we had a big advantage here. So we got it done in 3 years. But yes, that was a great group. And where the team really showed its grit is in the second half of football, in the fourth quarter. You know, they don't get credit for it. You know, we gave up 44 points in 16 games in the fourth quarter that year. 44 points. Shit, we scored 130.
Yeah.
So, you know, when players start seeing that, what they do is they start taking all their work that they had invested and they start taking pride in the result they're getting out of that commitment.
Yeah.
You know? So they come to work every day expecting to work, expecting to get better, expecting to be driven and to drive others. So it was a great feeling. It was a good football team. It was good enough to win the Super Bowl. But in a series of 1, we lost, okay? We didn't play well. We turned the ball over. I didn't do a good enough job myself. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going through the season month by month, and I'm going through November, and November was a particularly challenging part of the schedule for you because you had 3 straight road games to open the month. 4 of your 5 games were on the road in the month of November, and you were playing some real good football teams. You had the Raiders in there, you had the Chargers in there, both AFC opponents that were really, really good. And you know, and you know, divisional opponents like Washington, even though you guys pitched a shutout in that game, divisional games are always a brutal matchup. So,
well, you know, we had those teams had some outstanding Hall of Fame caliber coaches.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, Joe Gibbs was with Washington at that point, right? And Joe Theismann was.
He was the head coach in '81.
Okay,
Jack
right.
Pardee maybe in '80. Yeah.
I think you're right. You're right. But Joe Theismann at quarterback that, you know, in that game, and they have talent, and, you know, but you're right. I mean, I think what I've been watching is exactly what you're seeing. Your team was a closer. You know, there were a lot of close games early on, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think the 80 season was the defense was the stronger of the 2 units? As I watch these games, I'm just seeing one phenomenal defensive performance after another from those guys. And
I would say the defense was stronger than the offense. But the offense had improved a lot. You know, Sid Gilman had helped us improve our offense and our offensive coaches more actually than the scheme. And we benefited from that. But I'd say our defense, coached by Marion Campbell, Fred Bruni, and all those guys, Chuck Clausen, you know, God, George Hill, who just passed away.
Yeah.
God bless him. They were fine football coaches. And that defensive team over a period of 3 years gave up fewer points to the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I remember right.
Wow.
But they never got credit for it.
No.
You know.
Why is that, do you think? I mean, is it just the history of the Eagles being kind of an also-ran? It was kind of tough for the media and for fans to kind of rinse that away?
Well, you know, people tend to stay with the image that a team had for a long time. They like the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
They have a terrible season right now, but it's still America's team, and it will be until they lose 3 years in a row, or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is. And I know this, that defensive team was probably either the number one or number two defensive football over a period of years here. They were really good. Now, offensively, we are up there. I think we averaged 350 yards a game, something like that, or close to it. Yeah. But, Harold Carmichael averaged 17 yards a catch here.
Yeah.
How many players in the league right now average 17 yards? Jaworski had a 90 quarterback rating then, which is now equivalent to about 105.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, Wilbert Montgomery was hurt part of the year that year, but still had a good year. We had, Sizemore and Walters and these guys. That year, not one offensive lineman missed a game.
That's incredible.
Yeah, in fact, over 7 years, John, after Stan Walters, Jerry Sizemore, Guy Morris, combined 7 years as a starter, combined they missed 2 games. 2 games.
Did you have some magic elixir? And if so, could you please give it to the current Eagles for health?
A totally different preparation. We were better prepared for daily contact and then really better prepared for contact in the game. Plus, the game was played lower. The body center of gravity was played lower. The knees were bent more. If you watch a lot of NFL games now, you'll see a lot of people standing up. So that exposes your body, to especially your legs. And anyway, it's just the whole approach to the game is different. And a lot of it is really good. Some of it's not as good as they think it is.
Yeah. As we get into the season here, I'm going to do a whole big thing on the NFC Championship game, but I want to get your thoughts on obviously one of the greatest games in Eagles history, that NFC Championship game, where I know you've talked about in the past, you had really kind of geared your team up to tackle the Dallas Cowboys because they were the cream of the crop in the NFC. Yeah. And that's the team that you guys needed to get over the hump. And you split the regular season series, although in the final game of the season, you didn't need to win that game. It was a point differential that you needed to maintain.
26 points. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you did that. And then in the NFC Championship game, after beating the Vikings in the divisional round, here come the Cowboys to Veterans Stadium. And obviously the city is pumped for it. I got to imagine that the players were pumped for it. You were pumped for it. What did you say to the team? Did you have to say much to the team before that game and the days leading up to it?
Well, in my career, I have never, ever been in a locker room before a game and evaluated teams so mentally ready to play. I didn't think there was any way they could beat us. And first, we were a good football team, and we knew we could beat the Cowboys because we had beaten them. But the emotional readiness to play was so glaring, and the air in the locker room was so intense. I remember walking out of the tunnel. George Allen was standing. He was there as an analyst with the CBS, I think, whoever was broadcasting the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Brookshire. Yeah. Was the color analyst.
Yep.
Philadelphia guy. And George pulled me off to one side. He said, there is no way the Cowboys can beat this football team today. And I remember the statement I made. It's been quoted many times in the locker room. Like I said, if the Dallas Cowboys take us for granted, we're going to kick their ass. Yeah. And I thought maybe Dallas would come in a little bit overconfident because they had scored a lot of points on us on the 16th game of the season. In that, all that, and they may be a little too confident. But, the frame of mind is very critical when two teams are pretty close. Yeah. So, and we were good at taking the ball away and not turning it over until the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So anyway, everything was in our favor. The weather was in our favor. It was very, very, very cold. Yeah. The city was electrified. It's the stadium, the feeling in that stadium when you walked in there, it was like you're walking in a 20-foot square box, and everybody was so close and crammed into that box. Yeah. It was. I never experienced that after that. I never experienced that before that.
Wow, that's awesome. I think Jerry Robinson also told a funny story last week. He said Tony Dorsett had to leave that game with an injury, I think, and refused to come back out. He was in the training room, and Otho Davis was looking at him, and Otho gave him some chili and cornbread, and Tony Dorsett said, "I'm done for the day. I'm not coming back out."
I don't know if that's true or not, but Dorsett Dorsett was a pain in the ass for us. He was a great football player.
Yes, he was.
And running behind a great offensive team. You know, they were very good.
Yeah.
And, you know, anyway, Hall of Famers on that team.
No doubt about it. I mean, and Tom Landry, obviously, is legendary head coach. Yeah. So talk about the Super Bowl just for a few minutes, because the team came out a little. It seemed. Do you think the team came out tight in the Super Bowl? That they were just they were the moment was big, or what happened with Super Bowl 15 in your eyes?
First off, John, everybody that plays in the Super Bowl comes out tight.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Come on, that's the biggest game in the world at that time, and the NFL still is. I've been in two of them, and you come out tight. You know, we just didn't play well.
Yeah.
We did not play well. The circumstances in preparation, evidently I made some mistakes. We didn't play as well as we were capable of. And we were banged up at wide receiver. We only had one starting wide receiver. Remember, Charlie Johnson started the game. Charlie Smith, rather.
Yeah.
But he had a broken jaw. So we let him start one play, and then we took him out. And he couldn't play. And Scott Fiskey had a stress fracture. So we were playing with our number one, Harold Carmichael, and our number 4 wide receiver. Now we're playing against a press coverage, man coverage with the white gloves and tar all over their hands. It was tough. They took away things we like to do. We couldn't do it as well. And I compensated by playing Wilbert Montgomery outside some, which I think he was the leading receiver in the game. But then that hurts your running game.
Yeah.
So, you know, if like we all say, if I could do it over again, I'd do some things differently. But unlike the NBA, unlike Major League Baseball, it's not a series of best of 7.
Yeah.
It's the best of 1.
Yeah.
And the Raiders deserve the win. The one long broken play touchdown should have been called back glaringly. Carl Harrison would have sacked the quarterback. The offensive tackle, who was in the Hall of Fame, grabbed him by the face mask and pulled him to the ground.
Right.
Okay. Pulled him to the ground, or else that play doesn't even happen.
Yeah.
And you know, there are a lot of things like that in all big games that make a difference. But we came out the end. You accept it. You give him credit. Tom Flores is going on the Hall of Fame. Good for him. He did a great job.
Yeah. I mean, and I think Eagles fans, we remember that NFC Championship game, you know, more than the Super Bowl, just because it was the Cowboys and because
if we'd have won, they wouldn't be that way.
That's true too.
John, let me say this.
Yeah.
It takes the same thing to go to Super Bowl and win that it does to go there and lose. You got to get there.
Yeah.
It is tough to get there. I respect my Eagle team as much or more than I do my Ram teams, because we got there without all the resources to get there.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing my contract, I had no agent. And John Shaw, the president, said, would you like a clause if you go to the Super Bowl in your contract? I said, no, thanks. From the salary you're paying me, it looks like you're paying me to do that already. You know, that was the thinking in those days. I'd do it differently today. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't, you know, we won the Super Bowl. I didn't make any money in the Super Bowl. I gave, you know, that's just the way it was, you know. But it's everybody remembers I don't go anywhere where somebody doesn't say, you know, I was at the game. You know, I was at the game when you beat the Cowboys. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if they really were, but they love to say it.
Well, that's what I say. There's probably about 200,000 people that will tell you that they were at the game, right? Yeah. It only holds about 60,000 back in those days. That's right. So do you have one lasting memory from that 1980 Eagles team that when you think back, that it's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I think the overall character and integrity of the group of men that put that team together, they're still close. They're still friends. And whenever they get together and I'm around them, they tease me a lot. And they talk about how hard they work. And I've heard them say, Coach, I go to practice now. It looks like Dancing with the Stars. Compared to how we worked. They take great pride in what they did to become good players. Yeah. And because they were really good people too.
Yeah.
Everybody in that locker room was a good example to the guy that was suiting up right next to him. Mm-hmm. And if he wasn't, then he didn't stay. He either got cut on his own by not working, or we just got rid of him. He didn't fit. Yeah. And I think they take pride. But the number one thought I think is about the character. Mm-hmm. And it was an amazing group of people.
I think my favorite line that I think I've ever heard you say is hard work is not a form of punishment. And I have three boys, 9, 7, and 5, and that's the thing that we try to stress to them all the time is with
That's our
school.
solution.
Yeah.
It's your, if you really learn that, it's your solution.
Yeah.
It's your problem solver, and it just, today we don't raise kids. We raise them to find a way not to work.
Yeah.
And that football team was a hardworking team. First off, we didn't give them a choice. And yes, they bitched and moaned, and retired and walked off the field. I can remember seeing guys walk off the field.
Yeah.
But when they started recognizing the reward for their effort and the feeling it gave them, the pride that they started taking in it, we had very, very few bad practices. Very few.
If I can ask you real quick about this current Eagles team, it looks as though we're kind of at a crossroads here with the 2020 Eagles, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you've seen from this Eagles team this season, as you kind of are able to take a step back and see what's been going on with Doug Peterson in the offense and Carson Wentz in the defense. What are your thoughts on this 2020 Eagles team?
Well, first off, way too many injuries. And that not only affects the way you play game day Sunday, it affects the way you practice.
Yeah.
You're practicing with guys to fill in and the guy not practicing might end up playing Sunday because he just couldn't practice all week. Yeah. And, in today, for example, in the old days, if you're bumped, they called you had a bruise. Now they call it a soft tissue injury. And you don't play with soft tissue injuries.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole different mindset. But this football team had way too many injuries of critical positions that negatively influence the performance of your best players. You can't lose 4 of your 5 starting internal offensive linemen and play like you did. The quarterback especially, because he's either the victim or the beneficiary of his support staff. And that's those guys on the field. And sometimes they were going to play on Sunday, but they couldn't practice all week, so they don't get any better. They get worse.
Right.
You develop bad habits, and you aren't quite ready for the tempo of the game on Sunday. You're just trying to get through without re-injuring. So I think that's the number one thing. The other thing is Doug Peterson hasn't forgot how to coach football. He already brought us to a world championship. Yeah. Yes, he's lost some good coaches, and he lost a couple last year. Maybe that's hurt him more than they thought it would. A couple of guys took the blame for not winning a playoff game. I don't know, but they got let go. You hire 3 more. And a positive contribution hasn't been recognized from that move.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things. But I think, number one, the injury factory, and that really negatively hurts the number one position on the team, your quarterback. There's just no way he can play as well. Look at Foles. Watch Foles play.
Yeah.
He was a MVP here. Why? Because he had a great support staff that allowed him to play well. See, in Chicago, that offensive line not very good.
Yeah.
Even when he's not sacked, he's getting bounced around, and there's someone around him distracting him. And it's hard to be really efficient at that position without other people playing their position efficiently. So, anyway, I think that's the number one thing. And I think sometimes players get a lot of money because they have played well, and all of a sudden they don't play as well. I sense that with a few guys. Am I right? Hell, I don't know. I'm just a fan now.
Yeah.
And I never question Doug when we communicate about why he did something or what's wrong or anything. I'm just sort of an emotional support guy for him because I've lost more games than he has. So I know what it's like.
Well, Coach, it has been an honor to talk to you. I've wanted to talk to you for a long time, and I'm really thrilled that we were able to talk today about this 1980 Eagles team that I've had so much fun going back and taking a look at the season that you guys had and reminiscing. And again, I really appreciate all the time you were able to give. Thank you so much.
Let me make a suggestion. If you want to add credibility, what you're doing right now, talk to Jaworski.
Yeah.
Talk to Harold Carmichael.
Yeah.
Talk to Stan Wallers and Jerry Sizemore, who just went in the Philadelphia Hall of Fame. Talk to Wilbert Montgomery. I made a coach out of Wilbert Montgomery.
Yes, you did.
It's not all that team is not all about the head coach. It's about all those guys.
Yes,
and
sir.
if you want to really add credibility to this little venue you're working on right now, I would talk to those guys. They know more about why we won than I do.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you so much, Coach. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, John. Take care.